Let's Science is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
3, 2, 1.
We live in a universe of scientific wonders.
Every day, scientists are inching towards breakthroughs which can change our lives.
We're playing our small part in sharing these wonders with you.
That's why today is a fine day for science.
So let's science.
So, Caroline, glass brains, do they or did they ever exist? Over to you.
So, maybe one that we know of.
At least one. All right.
Just one. Okay. So, what is thought to be the brain of a man who died in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in Herculaneum in 79 AD has been studied and found to have turned to glass during the eruption. So now, Mount Vesuvius is an active volcano on the Gulf of Naples in the Campania region of southern Italy. It's east of the city of Naples, near the Bay of Naples. And the city of Herculaneum, along with the most famous, Pompeii, is located right near the volcano. So we all heard about the eruption and the burying of the cities of Herculaneum and Pompeii.
Yeah, very famous.
Yeah, Pompeii.
Yeah.
Now, this particular one was found in Herculaneum. So this volcano has been erupting about every 20 years in the past. However, the last eruption, it's very active. The last time it happened was in 1944. It is expected to erupt again, and scientists are always closely monitoring, so they're always looking out.
Because they want the volcanic ash to make Roman concrete. That's why.
Totally. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice
Wow.
segue.
I totally forgot about that.
Please continue. A key ingredient, is volcanic ash. Yeah.
So in AD 79, Mount Vesuvius erupted with a massive explosive force. There were warning signs in the form of earthquakes in the years leading up to the eruption, and there is evidence of renovations in people's houses and other structures in the city of Pompeii and Herculaneum to repair the damage. But the people living there may not have known at the time this was the beginning of the end of their beautiful cities.
Yeah.
And just to mention here, Herculaneum, Pompeii, and other less-known cities such as Oplontis and Stabiae were close and also covered up by the Mount Vesuvius eruption. So the eruption actually occurred in a few phases. Now you're going to get a little history lesson here. The initial phase is often referred to the Plinian phase. This is named after Pliny the Younger, who was a Roman scholar, and he documented the event as it happened. As a historical note, Pliny the Younger also wrote about his uncle Pliny the Elder in the form of letters he sent to the historian Tacitus. And Tacitus actually requested Pliny the Younger to write to him about his uncle because his uncle was quite revered.
Tacitus is an important historian as well because Tacitus also is one of the sources outside of Scripture who mentions Jesus. So
that's right.
Throw that fun fact. There's a fun fact for you.
Cool.
So shout out to Tacitus here.
Yeah, well done. Good work, Tacitus.
Now, Pliny the Elder was a well-respected author and naturalist, and he was also appointed commander of the Roman naval fleet. When the eruption started, Pliny the Elder sailed the ship towards Pompeii in an attempt to assess what was going on and to rescue people who were trying to escape. Unfortunately, he died from the toxic gases and the ash coming from the volcano, along with the many people still in the area. It is a very interesting documented story of someone who lived through the eruption and is worth reading up on. And there's also many documentaries available on YouTube. So I reckon go have a look and have a watch of what happened then. It's heart-rending and you also, from a historical perspective, see what the people unfortunately went through. So the Plinian stage of the eruption involved Mount Vesuvius sending up a column of debris and gases up into the atmosphere. Then pumice and ash fell onto Pompeii, causing buildings to collapse under the weight. And this phase lasted for about 18 to 20 hours.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Goodness me.
The next phase of the eruption is known as the Pelian phase, and this is when the pyroclastic flows began. This involved huge avalanches of hot ash, rock, gas racing down the slopes of the volcano, and this caused the destruction of anything in its way. For the people of Pompeii and Herculaneum, it meant surges of heat, the destruction of buildings and structures, asphyxiation, death by the intense heat, and it affected any person or animal in the city and surrounding area. It was quite dramatic. In the end, the city of Herculaneum and Pompeii and their inhabitants were completely covered by the layers of ash and pumice, and that they were left that way until they were rediscovered in the 1700s. So since then, Herculaneum and Pompeii have been gradually excavated by archaeologists and studied, and so we know a lot of information about the inhabitants, how they lived, what work they did, the divide between the rich and the poor, and slaves. We know there was a lot of slaves that was part of society back then. We know what they ate. We know what they did for recreation. They traded goods. They cooked. They sold food. They bathed. They had beautiful frescoes on the walls of elite homes and so on. Truly fascinating. So once again, go watch some YouTube videos about the ancient cities.
Cool.
Very
Yeah.
So now a recent study published in the Journal of Nature on the February 27th this year, 2025, has looked into the apparent glass remains of a brain of an inhabitant living and unfortunately dying in Herculaneum in 79 AD in the eruption. The remains of the man was found in his bed inside the Collegium Augustalium and was thought to be the guardian of a building which was dedicated to the worship of Emperor Augustus.
Yep.
Emperor Augustus.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
The man, they think, was 20 years old, and his skull was found next to his remains, and inside his skull a glassy material was found. It had an obsidian-like appearance, so it's a black glassy look to it. The material was examined under a scanning electron microscope, and researchers found that there was an exceptionally well-preserved network of neurons, axons, and other structures that indicated that the material is in fact the remains of the man's brain and spinal cord.
Whoa.
Now, I've watched documentaries on this before, and there have been some doubt in the scientific community that this material was in fact brain, because brain has never been found in glass form before.
Yeah.
So, but they are now confirming that the material is brain that is turned to glass, so vitrified brain tissue. This study indicates that there would have had to be very specific conditions for the brain material to turn to glass. So usually the temperatures that bodies were exposed to during the eruption, which was several hundred degrees, would cause for tissue to be burnt and destroyed and not turn them to glass.
Yep.
This kind of brain or other soft tissue has never been, this kind of preservation has never been documented before. So it is thought, so during the eruption, it is thought that the brain was not fully destroyed, but was damaged as it was heated up, and then it cooled very quickly, so it vitrified or turned to glass. So after conducting several experiments, this team find that the events that led up to this poor man's brain to turn to glass were a surge of very hot dilute ash cloud above 510 degrees Celsius, first covering him and, of course, everybody else. And then the man's brain was not fully destroyed. It's thought that within a matter of minutes, the ash cloud dissipated and the ambient temperature returned to normal conditions, which means there was a fast cooling as the ash settled on the ground around him. Then they think they had a thick skull and spine, so that would have kept the volatile components of the brain, such as water and gases, from vaporizing, allowing the tissue that remained to turn to glass. So as Herculaneum was gradually covered by pyroclastic flow deposits of rock and ash, the body was fully covered and preserved until it was discovered in its current form, including the glass brain.
Yep.
So there you have it. So what they're basically saying is that it is very rare that something like this would happen. They've never found glass tissue or brain before. But the conditions, they did several experiments to see how this could have been formed. And that is their theory of how it would have happened. So very quick heating, very quick cooling. The volatiles of the brain were actually preserved. So what was left turned to glass. So
Wow.
pretty amazing, actually. Yeah. So
What's left of?
Yeah.
I know the brain
there is
itself.
glass,
So,
so you can look up the articles here that I've put, and you'll see.
I saw some of the images. Yeah, the deep dive science into it is really fascinating. Yeah,
it's not a full brain, like you can't just looking at it, but they found it there, and so obviously they had a look at it, and it turns out it's brain. So it's still look. Let me tell you, it's still being debated in the scientific community. But these guys did the experiment and found that it most likely could happen. So it's quite a fascinating thing in itself.
Yeah, all the things that have to come together for this fluke to happen, right? Like there's not examples or evidence of this happening in any other places around the world.
No.
True.
And if you think about it, the conditions of a volcano and it covering organic matter.
Yes,
it's very specific conditions, and and I'm sure each eruption might be a little bit different. Each sequence, each temperature, each whatever's inside the volcano may be different, a little bit different in each situation. But this happened it just caused exactly the right conditions for this poor man to have his brain preserved as glass.
Glass,
But if you see the rest of his remains, there isn't really much there.
Yes,
Like, he really got heated up. It's not a joke. It was.
Yeah. Pompeii was gruesome because people got cooked or suffocated, asphyxiated, things like that. Yeah.
There's many skeletons found and many plaster casts of bodies, and it's not nice.
It's given us a fascinating historical perspective, but there's also the unpleasantness that goes with it as well. Yeah. No, thank you for that, Caroline. I like that we've had 2 Roman-themed science episodes in a row now. So we're doing
I can't let you talk about Rome and me not talk about Rome. So
I just want to say Hail Caesar. There we go. Yeah. Now, I have
Caesar
a correction.
salad.
God, here we go. Yeah. I have a correction to make as well from our Roman concrete episode. So I'll just point this out. The person who contributed the Roman concrete article to us on Discord, which gave us an excuse to talk about, was awesome. I got tongue-tied about their name, and I apologize for that. However, Dom has swooped in and helped out. So the name is pronounced like this, and I'm going to read it because it's phonetically done here. So it's Shu'uliuma, okay? Where does this name come from? And this is another topic of yours that you'll like, Caroline.
Yes.
He was the Hittite king. Yes. That was in the Ramses III harem conspiracy episode of Mysterious World. So there you go. Yeah. So I need to go back and find that episode and listen to it. But yeah, so that's how to pronounce the name. So thank you very much. I have to read it again. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
I've heard it a few times. I don't think I've ever pronounced it myself. But
yeah. And we also got some feedback on Roman concrete about the strength of Roman concrete as well. You can go find it on SQPN's Facebook. Just go to our Let's Science episode that's been released there. No, it was our Catholics of Oz episode.
I have it here if you would like.
You have it here. Do you want to read it if you have it? Go for it.
So it's from Francois Remis. It says, I know that Roman concrete is not the subject, but your comparison is not very good. More than 99.99% of Roman buildings have disappeared or are in ruins. Only micro cracks are self-healed with under 0.5 millimeters.
That's the one. So I said the following. So thank you, first of all, for your feedback, which was awesome. I said, I think, or at least I hope the point I was trying to make is that there are some ancient Roman buildings made with Roman concrete formula that we discussed that have stood the test of time. I did talk about them in the episode, but definitely not all of them, as you say. Scientific tests which compared Roman concrete with modern concrete has shown it to be more durable because of its self-healing properties and its increase in overall strength. So he replied, and I was grateful for this, Roman concrete is more durable than our standard modern concretes, but much less strong. We have high-performance modern concretes that are at least as durable as Roman concrete and much stronger. So I replied, point taken. So I loved that discussion. Grateful to Francois for that as well.
It's great to have some input like that, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
Let's Science is brought to you by StarQuest Media and is a fortnightly podcast that brings you the scientific wonders of our universe from a distinctly Catholic point of view. For more from Caroline, Lindsay, and friends, listen to the StarQuest show, Catholics of Oz. Find links from today's show at sqpn.com/science, and find the Catholics of Oz at sqpn.com/Oz. Be sure to follow the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you can find podcasts, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. The generous donations of our patrons at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Let's Science and all the shows at StarQuest, which makes our nonprofit mission possible. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Join us next time for more scientific wonders, and thank you for listening to Let's Science on StarQuest. Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy, The Catholics of Oz. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/Oz.